better than nothing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler. I am told that this is episode 30 because apparently I have difficulty keeping count. We are back with another Alice episode. I am Mike. You can find me at Official Pagan on just about everything, and I am joined as always by...
I am the fox, and I go where I want. Or Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
All right, so we are here to talk about Alice, and specifically we are going to talk this week about Zipper Catches Skin. It's kind of an interesting record. What are your first thoughts on this, Kelly?
I went into, as we were beginning this journey, and I just, you have kind of general recollections of albums and where you land on them and which ones are your favorites and you play all the time. And Zipper Catches Skin was never like in heavy rotation for me. I got it when it came out and listened to it quite a bit when it came out and then cooled on it. And so I kind of came into the, prep for the show going like, this is, so-so, whatever. But while I would not depict this as really a true Alice Cooper album per se, because in terms of the things that are on there, they're very un-Alice Cooper-like. I mean, he's there, but he's not there in a lot of respects. I actually, upon re-listen and going through this, there is a lot of this album that makes me smile. And there's a lot of parts here I'm just like, so this is not great music, this is not great storytelling, but it's another junk food album, and there's some pretty darn good junk food on this album.
I kind of feel the same way. I don't dislike this album at all. If you dissect it, is it a good album? No. Not in the canon of Alice. Absolutely not. Is it a bad album, though, where you're not going to have a good time with it? No. Also, this is an interesting thing that I kind of want to point out. This is technically the first Alice Cooper album to be released during my lifetime.
I was just going to say, what a nice gift Alice gave you. A little birthday gift.
Yeah. I was born in 1982, so this was the first Alice record released in my lifetime.
Yeah, wow. So that's some context there.
As always, I kind of want to touch on the artwork first. What do you think about the album cover on this?
Of its many charms, and I think there are many charms to Zipper Catches Skin, the album title and the album packaging are not amongst them, in my opinion. The cover is the entire set of lyrics to the album in the appropriate font size to get all the lyrics to the album on an album cover. And then a little splash of blood in the upper right-hand corner. Given the title of Zipper Catches Skin, we kind of know the sourcing of the blood. So that's a little bit to me. And then on the back, we have kind of Alice Cooper meets David Byrne look. And not a great shot of Alice. So mildly creative, but not impressive album cover for me. Where did you land on it?
Yeah, this Alice... Obviously, we love these records, but I think we both are on the same page that there's so much great packaging, so much great artwork, so many really memorable images that Alice has brought us, and this just isn't one of them. I don't mind the lyrics on the front of it. I've seen this done better by other artists, though, and I don't know if Alice was the first person to do it, but other artists have done this better. Prince did this on the back of a few of his records, working lyrics into like the track listing on the back and stuff like that. 9 Inch Nails did this on the maxi single for Head Like a Hole. The cover of it is the lyrics to the song. So I've seen this before, and I've seen it in where it's better designed, I would say. And I don't like the picture of Alice on the back.
I'm not a fan of that at all either.
So I mean, I like the concept of the lyrics. I just don't like the execution of this.
I would agree.
Anything else you want to say before we get into the individual tracks?
Nope. Ready to go.
Okay, so track 1, Zorro's Ascent. Very more interesting in this than I think any song on the record to hear your opinion on this one.
So you may be surprised what I have to say about this song on a couple levels.
Okay.
One, this is going to be on my playlist. When we get done, top 15 songs, Zorro's Ascent's going to be on there. Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah, it's basically a Zorro story, but I love it. I think it's a cool song, and it does include the lyric that we started the podcast off with, I am the fox, and I go where I want, because Zorro is Spanish for fox, I guess. It's a rolling guitar song. It's got the Zorro 3 swish thing in there. Starts off Zorro lies dying in the Spanish sun. All the women crying, especially the pretty ones, which is gold to me. Great lyric. But he drew his sword. They came with guns, and we get a return of the bolt-action gun sound effect from Special Forces in Zorro's Ascent. So I guess Alice must have got like a package deal on some sound effects there. I really like this song. It has been on from the moment that I've had any sort of MP3 player. Zorro's Ascent has always been on the MP3 player as one of the songs.
Interesting. See, none of these, little spoiler alert, none of these are going to make my playlist. I don't mind this song. My only problem with, it has that good, galloping kind of pace to it. It is a guitar-driven song. My only problem with it, and we've kind of touched on this with some other songs before, I like the humor in Alice's songs, but there are times when it goes too far and it becomes almost campy and sort of Weird Al-ish. This is one of those moments.
It gets worse on this album than this.
Oh, yeah.
I hear you.
I still like this song. We're going to get to a song I don't like and is campy. So.
Be an interesting conversation because I went, well, actually, it'll be interesting to see where there's a couple songs on here I really don't like. And there are a lot of songs that get super campy, but actually, I kind of like most of the campy ones. I enjoy them. Like I said, make me smile. I don't think they're great music. They're not top stuff, but Zorro's Ascent, there's just something about it that it just is awesome. And also was maybe just because it was actually one of the first Alice for my girls as I started to introduce them to Alice. Zorro's Ascent has always been a crowd pleaser, crowd favorite. They've always liked it too. So it's the family favorite. So we'll keep it up there. But I've been trying to, and I think you've talked about, you've been working on the playlist a little bit as we went through. And I came into tonight going, same way you were, it's well, there's not going to be anything on here that's going to make my final playlist. And then as I started to get ready for the show, I'm like, oh, crap. Zorro's Ascent's on here. I love Zorro's Ascent. I think it's on my playlist. I think it's pretty high on my playlist.
My only other thing I would add about the song is, and it's funny because I couldn't place it. It was one of those moments where listening to it, I was like, this almost feels like it could be a song for someone else, sort of the way that Clones kind of put you in a Gary Newman-esque kind of space. I couldn't place where I thought this was, and when I was doing the research on the album, I watched someone else's review of this, and they said that this would have been a great song for Adam Ant, and I completely agree with that.
I couldn't argue with that, and that's that when we started talking about this, where I said, it's like it's not really, it's an Alice album, but it's not the Alice we know, and it does appear while there are things on here I really like, it's not because this is a further extension of the Alice canon. It's just like, oh, this is kind of a good song, but I would think probably most of these songs you could clearly see coming from somebody else, and maybe even better from them. I think Adam's Ant's version of Zorro's Ascent might be interesting to hear, but I will stick with Alice's, that's for sure.
Well, and the other thing too, and I still haven't watched Super Duper Alice Cooper, but there's a lot of stuff when you do some research on this album, that is something that is frequently referenced because of his stories about that being the Coke years and everything. And there's definitely like a twitchy sort of energy to this record. One of the things I found though is I came across a quote where Alice apparently said, and I don't know if this is in the documentary or not, but he apparently said that he really loves the songs on Zipper, Special Forces, and Dada, but that he would like to go back and re-record them properly, like sober and clear-headed, and give the songs their proper due that he didn't give them this time around, and he thinks that they would be better received if he really put all of his energy into them the way that they should have been. And again, I don't know where that quote was from, so I don't know how long ago he said that, but what do you think about artists? Because Alice did actually, there is an EP where he re-recorded some of his early tracks. What do you think about re-recording stuff? Like, would you be interested if he did come out with, say, a re-recorded version of Special Forces or Zipper Catch a Skin or Dada? Would you be anxious for that, or do you think he should just leave it alone?
I'd be open to it because really all three of those albums and Flush Fashion as well, I like decent portions of all of them, and if he returned to them, he might make me like him even more. So, because this was not him at his best, and this particular album, Zipper, was the one when you do see Super Duper Alice Cooper, and they talk about in the recording studio there was a special curtained off area set up for people to go back behind to reinvigorate. This was that recording session. Was the Zipper sessions was where they had the in studio coke room,
which is exactly what we're going to have on the next Pagan record.
There you go. See, well, maybe you'll do a Zorro's Ascent, and it'll be awesome.
And I think that, for this record too, going back to the Adam Ant thing, and you really summed it up even better, where you said that maybe some of these songs, a lot of these songs would have fit better with other artists. And I think that this is another example where maybe problem with this record, not that I dislike it, like this isn't, the first two, the Dark Ages. It's not that I don't like this record, but maybe what keeps it from being more of a go-to for me is this is one of those examples where I feel like Alice is following more than leading.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to capture it.
Because I hear a lot of stuff like that new wave into post-punk that was going on at that time. Some of the Adam Ant stuff, maybe some of the later like Cars stuff. Like you can hear some of that influence coming into this. And Alice is one of those people that I feel like works best when he's out in front leading the way, not trying to follow what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely original work for him, but I don't think it's original work. I guess as somebody say. It does have his humor, but it's the campiest side, and it's his humor is better when it's dialed back just a little bit. But it's still good. It's still funny.
And this is another one of those examples, like for me, because it's gonna kind of sound like I'm being negative towards this album, and it's just one of those things where Alice has so many amazing records that are so high. Like, forget about just a best of Alice list. Like, when I start thinking about what the best albums ever made were, I'm thinking about multiple Alice Cooper records that could go onto that list. So this is just one of those things where when you compare it to albums like Billion Dollar Babies and Love It to Death, and even like, because I love some of the later records too, like Dragon Town and stuff like that. Like, this is just not on that level. So that brings us to our second song, Make That Money, Scrooge's song.
Would have liked it a lot better if you'd left that Scrooge's song off the end. I thought that was a little bit unnecessary.
Well, that, again, to me is like the sort of going into camp instead of clever.
And I'm kind of on this one. Yeah, I don't dislike this song. There's not a lot about the song to make me like it. And it's pretty much about wanting to make money. And that's about it, with not a lot of additional dimension to it. So musically, not too shabby, kind of enjoyable to listen to, but just isn't steeped in the level of creativity we're used to. But like I said, it's not one that I cringe when I hear, but it's also not one that I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way on it. I didn't mind it re-listening to it, but it's also really not a standout. I don't like the Scrooge's song part the same as you, because again, that's kind of going into camp a little bit too much for me. It's just a song that's kind of there. Don't mind it, but it's not if you would ask me to name songs off Zipper Catch a Skin before I went back and listened to it, I would not have remembered the song.
Another interesting thing about this album is there are 4 song titles that include parentheticals. So Make That Money, parenthesis, Scrooge's song is the first of the 4.
Yes.
And it's another flag, I guess.
Well, then we can hop into our next song, unless you have anything else with Make That Money.
I do not.
It is I Am the Future. What do you think about this one, sir?
So this was actually featured on the soundtrack of a crap movie I've never watched called The Class of 1984. And it was kind of about like punk rock kids in a high school, I think. That's best I could tell. Or at least Hollywood's vision of what punk rock kids in a high school would be like. Don't care for this song one little bit. It actually is not. Alice did not write this. It was Gary Osborne and Lalo Schifrin who are responsible for this piece of work. And I'm not a. It's got kind of a techno sinister feel to it, and Alice does a good sinister voice to it. But I am just not a fan of this. There's a couple songs on this album that this is really one of the few times after we got out of the first 2 albums where I was like, I run into a song and say, I do not like this song. I Am the Future is one of those songs that I do not like.
So yeah, not written by Alice, which I think is important. So here's where this one is a little bit weird for me. I'm a little bit torn on it. I don't like the song either. I really don't. However, this song does have a place sort of in the development of post-punk going into. So from new wave into post-punk, that's really a direct line into goth music, which obviously had a huge influence on me. So this song in particular, you can hear that post-punk movie with this more sinister sound really charging into goth music. And its use in Class of 1984, which I'm not a huge fan of that movie, but definitely has a huge cult following. And movies in particular, Class of 1984, and to a much larger extent, Return of the Living Dead, played an enormous part in shaping what became the early goth scene coming out of that first wave of punk. So I'm kind of torn on it because it is, I guess, a part of what shaped goth music and culture, but I don't like the song at the same time.
Makes sense. Yeah, this is always a skip for me.
Yeah, I really don't like the song. I know a lot of people love Class of 1984. I'm not a huge fan of it. In fact, I make people really mad. There was a sequel to it called Class of 1999 that everybody in the world but me apparently hates. I thought that movie was pretty good. So I really piss everybody off by saying that I like the sequel to it better. So, but I'm just not a fan of the song. I get its place though. And a lot of like people who are really into the history of post-punk and goth and stuff like that, this song is one of those like foundation songs of that scene, largely for the fact that it was used in this movie, and this movie started to kind of get that out there. Not as much as Return of the Living Dead did after this, but it's a big part of it. So like it was almost formative in a way of what would become a big music scene. But I still don't like the song, even though it's Alice, even though it kind of played a part in a music scene that I'm a part of. It's just not a good song. Anything else you want to add to it, sir?
Nothing else on that one for me.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the song that I dislike the most on the entire album.
Oh, say it ain't so.
It is No Baloney Homo Sapiens, parenthetical, for Steve and E.T.
Really?
So, sir,
you don't like
no. I can't get into it.
So it's a strange one. I'll give you that. Yeah. It is a strange one.
I want to like it. Like, I like the idea of it. It's the execution of it that I don't like.
So I will agree with you there that much like has happened to us, particularly in the first two albums, sometimes Alice teases us with an awesome title, and then the song doesn't quite back it up on occasion. That happens. And I would say that the execution, when your song is called No Baloney Homo Sapiens, the bar's been set kind of high for awesomeness, and I would say that doesn't happen here. I like this song. I recognize that it is not much of a song in terms of the pretty simplistic storytelling here and those types of things. But and it was, basically the entire song was built so that it could kind of talk about this story of aliens coming and wanting to eat us, and him saying, which is the chorus, we're no baloney, we're Homo sapiens. So he's kind of telling the aliens not to eat us. But this whole song, I think, was built to have that, so that right the bottom third of this song where he goes, we're basically going to prevail over you, and then finishes off with, but don't worry, we're civilized and we won't eat you. It's a nice little moment for me. I like it.
I see. You know what it is? It's when I think about a song that's going to be like an Alice versus Aliens song, I think that that's going to be epic. Like Alice talking about an alien invasion and they're eating humans and stuff like that. Like I'm imagining this epic post-apocalyptic hard rock masterpiece. And that is not what this is. So I think it's my own expectations kill this song for me.
No, I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. And it's not really cringeworthy, but there are moments where I'm just like, oh, really, Alice? Because it's, in the chorus as he's singing to the aliens, he's like, just because you've got more ears and eyes, that just gives you more places to cry and to hear the screams and cries of the people you've disintegrated. And it's just like, okay, sort of, right. But it does fall short of the title. It is not epic, and there's just a couple little chuckles in it for me. So I guess maybe that's the way. This is not that I would say, oh no, it's one of the best songs on the album, but I get a chuckle or two out of it.
Yeah, this is my least favorite on the record, unfortunately.
I wanted to like it more than I do.
All right, so we can jump to our next one, which is adaptable. Anything for you. Thoughts, sir?
New Wave Alice again. Alice is, we love Alice, but sometimes, his reference set, Sammy Davis Jr. comes up in past albums, and here we've, this whole song starts off with, if you were Lucy, I'd be your Ricky. When you get juicy, I get real sticky. So that's, that's a good start, to a song. But, a Lucille Ball reference in a rock song, I don't know so much about that. But another song that I enjoy listening to, it's not anywhere close to a skip for me. I don't hang on every note. Music is fun. It's back to that kind of frenetic, twitchy kind of sound we're talking about. It includes, to me, some of my favorite stupid lines on this album, which were, "You ain't no Hepburn, and I ain't no Fonda, but if you were drowning in Golden Ponda, mouth to mouth, I'd resuscitate with you," which I like. It's stupid, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same on this song. Like, it's twitchy, new wave. It's far from the Alice we love, but I like the song. I don't mind the song.
Yeah, and it kind of, like we've seen happen on a couple of the previous albums, like Flush the Fashion, it rolls right in without interruption into I Like Girls.
Yes. Now, what do you think about I Like Girls?
So I Like Girls. Again, probably same territory as the last song, that twitchy, kind of fun to listen to. Patty Donahue is featured on vocals and sarcasm, is how she's credited in the liner notes, as he's trying to talk about that he's going to be loyal to her, but he obviously has this big long list of girls that he likes and all that. So again, nothing near the art and epicness and interest of any kind of previous Alice works. But if you kind of come to this point in the album, you realize you're not going to get wowed, and so it's just kind of like it's like the previous. Sometimes they'll have like a video short before the main movie. This is where previous Alice albums were full of movies for us to enjoy. These are like shorts, and they're like, oh, okay, that's kind of cute. And so that's where I'm kind of like on this. So I like Girls, except I could kind of, the whole introduction of Patty Donahue and interplay, a little less enthusiastic about that. But it's basically have about the exact same feelings as I do with Adaptable.
Yeah, it's twitchy, new wavy. I don't mind Patty Donahue on it. In fact, I would say that for me, this is kind of one of the stronger songs on the album. I feel like it's still campy, but it's pulled back just slightly when you compare it to like No Baloney, Homo Sapiens or Zorro's Ascent.
Yeah, well, and I'll quibble with you on Zorro, but I'll go with you on the I do think. And
again, it's still campy. It's just, it's pulled back a little bit, so it comes off a little more clever than some of the other humor on the record, to me.
I wouldn't disagree, and I would say of everything we've been through, and we can agree to disagree on Zorro. It is, it's probably at this point the strongest track on the album.
Yeah, I got to see as we work through, but this might actually be my favorite on the album.
Yeah.
Not going to make the playlist, but
no,
I do like it.
Yeah. I do. It's a fun one. It's cool, and
it goes straight into Remarkably Insincere. What are your thoughts on that?
Twitchy, campy. It's a song a little bit about him taking advantage of girlfriend. He actually references the previous song in this song, which is always interesting. I kind of pulling back to some of the comments from the previous song in Remarkably Insincere. Calls his girlfriend Einstein in a not nice way. I don't think he means it. He's being remarkably insincere. It's another one. I think I Like Girls is a better song. I like it better, but Remarkably Insincere is kind of in the, it's in the orbit. This whole Adaptable, I Like Girls, and Remarkably Insincere, they all kind of collectively hang together for me, with I Like Girls being my favorite of the three.
Yeah, I Like Girls is definitely my favorite of the three. They all kind of interconnect. It almost creates like a little mini suite in the middle of the album. Not to say that anything on the album ever really reaches that level of artistic credibility, but I don't mind Remarkably Insincere. It's not as good as I Like Girls because it's not, again, I Like Girls in the context of this album, is one of the more clever songs. Whereas now we're kind of, scaling back into the campier end of the pool here. But I don't mind the song. In fact, one of the things I thought, and I kind of wrote down in my notes as I re-listened to it, these three songs all do sort of just go one into the other, but this one even more so from I Like Girls and Remarkably Insincere, and they're both very short. I don't have the track listing in front of me, well, the timing in front of me, but I want to say they're like 2.5 minutes each. It's almost like they could have just been one song.
Yeah, I Like Girls is 2:25, and Remarkably Insincere clocks in at 2 minutes and 7 seconds.
There you go. So you could combine them and it wouldn't even be 5 minutes long. So these could have been reworked into one song.
Yep. And they kind of act.
And this overall is sort of a short album, isn't it? I want to say it's only maybe just over 30 minutes.
Yeah, with the behemoth being No Baloney, Homo Sapiens at a 5-minute mark.
Yeah.
So that's where the majority of the time is. Nothing else cracks 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's short songs. This is one of those things where I feel like this, on an album that they put a little more effort into, this probably would have been one song, but they probably needed 10 songs and they're all kind of on the short side. So this is two ideas that maybe with better editing could have been one better song.
I could see that.
So our next song then would be Tag You're It. What are your thoughts on this, sir?
So this is my other song on this album that I don't like at all. When the premise is I'm going to write a song to get to the punchline of a joke that third graders tell. Maybe you should come up with another idea for a song. It would be my point. Because this entire thing exists to go back to the old kind of third grader joke of, there's this monster and he's following you and he's getting closer and he's getting closer and he wants to say something to you and he's getting closer and he reaches out his hand and then he goes, tag, you're it. And that's the joke, which as a third grader's hilarious. You just think it's the greatest joke in the world. I'm not sure you put this on your album as a song to get to that punchline. So I don't like this song. And this was actually written by Alice.
Yeah, not a song I'm a huge fan of. There's really only 2 songs on this record I'll say I don't like. That'd be No Baloney, Homo Sapiens, and this one. I Am the Future, again, not a fan of it, but it has its place sort of historically in music, and I have to acknowledge that and give it credit for that. So I'm torn on that one, but this and No Baloney, Homo Sapiens, I'm just not into.
Well, you're wrong on No Baloney, but okay. Again, I don't want to fight too hard for it because it's not like a great song.
Okay, so I Better Be Good.
So this features the title of the album in it. If Zipper Catch a Scan, I know I had it out when I should have kept it in. Ouch. So there's some lyrical magic for you there. I like this song. It's again, twitchy, fast. This is the, I believe, second time. Alice has this habit, and will show up again later, where he set some lyrics up where if you would follow the actual rhyming pattern of the song, a not so nice word would kind of show up. And so like in working up a sweat on Muscle of Love, he sings the line, bandages come off today, really feeling sick, always hard explaining, all these blisters on my nose is the lyric there, which, is the chuckle of, well, I know what that word was supposed to be. I Better Be Good has the second occurrence of this. The best one comes up when we get to Dada, but on here there's a good one where it's along the lines of, if I jump on the gas, the cop's going to jump all over my back. Is the lyric there, which is again kind of a little cute, some symmetry and some things he does there. I like this song. It's kind of a fun guitar sound to it. It's definitely a peppy little number, and then it's got this very kind of strange chorus of you better be nice, and you've got these people going nice, nice, nice. You better be nice, nice, nice. Which is it's kind of fun to me. Kind of back to the rags kind of stuff on Special Forces. So I like the song overall.
Yeah, I like it as well. It's fun. It's got a good tempo to it. It's twitchy again, which is a recurring theme on this. But, it's the Coke years.
Indeed it is. And it's been reflected in many of these titles and lyrical content and stories.
Yeah, you really can hear it on some of the stuff. When you told me about that it drew particularly those 3 records into perspective for me.
Yeah, and this one makes sense. Based on what we can tell, this is like probably him at his highest level of consumption of coke, and that makes sense when you listen to the albums that this is that. And then I'm still trying to piece it together, but I think he eschews the coke, but goes back to drinking for a little bit for Dada. So it's not quite out of it yet, but you get a different. You definitely don't get there's a whole different mojo when we get to Dada in terms of what's going on there, and also you start to see kind of a swing. You can start to tell he is starting to swing back into an Alice that we're a little more familiar with. Not that really these last three albums have been bad, but they've been an interesting detour, to say the least.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. These three albums together are sort of a detour. There's some good stuff in there. You could almost make like one really solid compilation album of tracks from these three albums.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so that brings us to our last song. Once again, parenthetical. I'm alive, parentheses. That was the day my dead pet returned to save my life.
So that's a big check that's been written by that song title. You're expecting something pretty darn amazing. And while it doesn't completely deliver on the epicness of this title, it does illustrate numerous instances where Alice's dead pet returns to save his life. It's fairly decent musical accompaniment to it. The chorus of I'm Alive is solid. It is, when you talk about campy, it is incredibly campy. But, for a song about dead pets returning to save your life, it's a pretty good number.
I like that you said for a song about dead pets returning. Like, there's so many songs out there.
In that genre, it's one of the better dead pets returning to save your life.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other dead pets returning to save your life song. So the Ramones had Pet Sematary based on the Stephen King book. Miley Cyrus made an album called Miley Cyrus and Her Dead Pets, which was basically her fronting the Flaming Lips, which is actually a good album. That's it. And that's not really, either one of those are really a part of that genre.
Your thoughts on this? Where do you kind of land on it?
The same as you. It's campy. It doesn't quite deliver on the title. I don't mind the song though.
It's a heck of a title. My goodness.
I'm not sure anybody could deliver on that title though. Once you put out something that's so over the top like that, it's hard to live up to that for anyone.
It is tough. He gives it a good shot though. Yeah. And so as we've started to go through this, I started to kind of really, this is possibly one of the most difficult albums to figure out which song we want to assign to Mr. Pat Boone.
It's not difficult for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going no baloney Homo Sapiens all the way.
just because you don't like Pat that much.
Yeah, it's my least favorite song. It's definitely the campiest for me. And also, I could see him putting his own spin on it of sort of a religious thing and making it like we were created by God and we'll defeat the aliens. So I could see him in a weird way making this a religious song.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I could maybe. I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure out Pat's delivery for the line, but don't worry, we're civilized and we won't eat you. Which is Alice's best delivery in that song. It would be interesting to see how Pat handles that. I'm going to go with I Like Girls. He'll ruin it. It will be terrible. It will be nowhere as Alice's version, but I could see Pat. Yeah, I Like Girls. I'll do that song.
I could see that as well. I think that's a perfectly good contender as well.
So trying to figure out, I think it's fair to say we can concentrate on the lower half of the list. Do you have your list in front of you to be able to?
I'm pulling it up right now because I realized that I really needed to look at it to really understand this one. Good. All right, so I have the lists up in front of me now. So really, where are you thinking?
So I struggled because I thought I had this pretty much going into it. I'm like, okay, it's not. This album is not worse than Easy Action or Pretty's for You. So I know it's above them. And actually, and where my basement continues next up to Lace and Whiskey, and I'm pretty comfortable in saying I like this album better than Lace and Whiskey. And so for me, it's a question of, do I like it better than Alice Cooper Goes to Hell? And while there are moments of this album that make me smile, in terms of overall true Alice being Alice, I have a hard time doing that. So it's going to this is the 14th album we reviewed. I'm going to nestle it in spot 11. So that puts it for me between Goes to Hell, below Goes to Hell, and above Lace and Whiskey. Your list is slightly different there at the bottom. Similar, a lot of the same albums. Your bottom four, starting at the top of your bottom four, you have Lace and Whiskey ahead of Goes to Hell. Easy Action and Pretty's For You are your bottom four. Special Forces is the one ahead of Lace and Whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is the vicinity you're going to be placing this. So.
It is. It's really right now in my head. It's. Do I like it better than Lace and Whiskey or Goes to Hell? Like this is, which one of those do I like better? And right now I'm going to say I'm going to put it right in between them. It's going to be above Goes to Hell, but after Lace and Whiskey for me.
Okay, so it's
going to be my new 11.
Well, I knew that was going to be a fun one because that's one of. This thing is just such a strange bird on so many fronts that. But I was really pleasantly surprised getting ready for the show and re-listening to it to go. I actually kind of, I enjoy for what it is, and it's just not. If I were to say, boy, if you want to get into Alice Cooper, start with Zipper Catches Skin. I'm not going to say that. So there was a commercial advertising Zipper Catches Skin. I'll include that, and
okay.
And then I might just put in Zorro's Ascent so that our listeners can decide for themselves how awesome that song is. Power of the pen. All right. We'll be back next week for some more recommendations from Squat Cobbler. And after that, our next Alice album will be Dada.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. So, and we're getting super close to, I know, one that's near and dear to your heart. So,
yes.
But Dada's got good. And the cool thing with Dada is we're going to return back to better album covers. So that part's pretty sweet. So.
Yes. And then the album cover will be coming.
Yes, there's other album covers to come. That's for sure, without a doubt. All right, folks, thanks for listening. We will be back next week with recommendations and then Dada after that. So thanks.
Thanks, guys.
And there's a lot of Scooby-Doo porn in general that I didn't know existed until the last couple weeks.
You must be so proud.
I'm just proud of myself that I got through my entire recommendation without using any objectionable language.
Okay. Want to be cool like Alice Cooper, do coke.